Welcome back from Europe, Lee.
Thank you, Savannah. Welcome back to Europe. No. All right. Sorry. Take two.
No, this is the take. This is the take.
We don't get a second take.
Everything's final, baby.
Welcome back from Europe, Savannah.
I know. The fact that we were both in Europe, but slightly at different times.
Yes.
Crushing.
Yes. But I think we both went to the Cotswolds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where were you in the Cotswolds?
Southwest Cotswolds.
Nice.
Yeah.
Actually, same.
Really?
Yeah, we were in Kingham.
Okay.
I thought you were in Oxford, right?
We were in Oxford, and then we did day trips to the Cotswolds, to Bath, and to London.
Isn't it the most magical place on earth?
It's really lovely.
Yeah, except for that you got sick.
I did get sick right before I came back. Yeah, but alas.
Picked up a disease in the Cotswolds.
Yes. And you did the big trail.
I did the Camino in Spain for 2 weeks and then did Portugal and then did England.
Yeah, to be young again.
I know, seriously.
To be young and carefree and can do that, go away for a month like that.
I know, my dad calls it frolicking, and
Frolicking.
I am a good frolicker.
Yeah.
I do. I can disappear with no problem. Okay, Lee. So a couple of people, because we started this show and kind of just dropped people into the middle of the story.
Yes.
As we were sort of dropped into the middle of the story. But a couple of people have asked, how do you know each other? What is the show about? Like, what's the origin story? And what are kind of like the goals of the show? How did we meet?
We met because some people on our team said we should meet.
Yes, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
I actually have a how we met that you don't know about, though.
Oh, really?
We have never met, but we have been in the same room that I
Really?
just found out about at Savannah Pickens' birthday party.
Really?
Yes.
How about that?
It just occurred to me because Sarah, another friend of mine, Sarah, mentioned that because I knew that you guys were related, you and Savannah, and she was like, yeah, Lee was at Sav's birthday party. And I was like, it
How
was
about
always
that?
meant to be. So
Well, you must not have been very sociable that night because I don't think we met.
I was not sociable that night. No,
Yeah.
I was in my little corner with my 5 friends outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you sociable that night?
I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
So that's our origin story and all of its drama.
Yes.
And the way that the show started was that people from the team, Mary Evelyn and Sophie, had this idea of you talking about pop culture.
Yes. Yeah. They like to tease me about not having a cell phone.
Yes.
And so they think that it makes me, let's see, what's the word?
What is the word?
Dense with regard to what's going on in the world. And so I think that they thought, well, it would be fun to see if Lee wanted to have some conversation about pop culture rather than him being so haughty in his academic white tower.
Yeah.
And so I think they thought this would be a fun show.
I feel that dunce might be how they would describe it. I have no idea. I would say you're just kind of like jet lagged in this area. It's just like slightly behind the curve. Like me telling you that Taylor Swift got engaged, like I can't tell you how many people texted me saying, was that scripted? Like at least 5 people were like, no, Lee knew that Taylor Swift was engaged. I was like, no, he literally didn't know.
I mean, I didn't.
You're just a man at peace.
I didn't know. And I mean, I'm happy for all that care about that. Then, good. And good for Taylor. I pray God's blessings on her marriage to Travis, and I pray that they'll make vows until death and they'll keep them.
Yes.
But no, it's not something I spend much time thinking about.
Right. No, and I love that. And I think that's what makes the dynamic between us hopefully fun and energizing. But also, I think that sometimes people can just get stuck in the pop culture thing and not think more deeply or consciously about things. And then sometimes people can get stuck in the academic world and just not crawl out.
Have a sort of relevance to the rest of the world.
Crawl out of their libraries every once in a while.
Right. Yeah.
Touch grass.
Yeah.
Watch a show.
Yeah.
Enjoy their lives.
I'm for both of those.
So I feel like that's how the show got started.
Yeah.
And then we met after we had kind of already conceptualized the show. And then we were just like, hopefully we like each other.
Yeah, that's right.
And I like you.
And I think so far, at least to this point, I think that we do.
Same. I think so. Fingers
I
crossed.
hope you won't screw it up.
Fingers crossed. Wow, what a nice little pressure cooker situation we put ourselves in. So there is very little drama to this origin story. It's more like One Direction. Do you know the band One Direction?
I've heard of them.
Okay, so they're not a thing anymore, but they were a thing back in the day, and they sort of just got like pieced together. That's what this is.
Yeah. Like One Direction.
Less of a Beatles situation, more of One Direction.
Yeah.
Yes. So on that note, let's start the show.
Let's start the show.
Speaking of Taylor Swift, of Taylor Allison Swift and her engagement you did not know about, she just released a record called Life of a Showgirl.
I have heard about that.
Yes. Have you spent any time I requested that you listen?
You did request that I listen, and I spent about an hour or an hour and a half this very morning sitting on my front porch listening to Taylor Swift.
Taylor Allison Swift.
Taylor
Yes.
Allison Swift.
I love it.
And that would mean that's the most time I've ever spent with Taylor Swift was this morning.
Oh my gosh. Okay, genuine reaction. How did it feel?
I enjoyed my experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Obviously, she's great at what she does, and catchy lyrics and catchy melodies and catchy arrangements. And yeah, it was fun.
This is fascinating too, because you're coming in after she's already kind of been like this massive pop star. And a lot of people have been fans like since back in the day. As a result, she has this group of like fans called Swifties.
Yeah, I know of them.
Very serious fans, very bought into the lore. Like they want to know why she's writing these lyrics and what this background story is and stuff. And as a result, someone was actually telling me this morning that they think that Taylor Swift has received a lot of criticism on this record in particular because of overexposure, meaning she's just so famous that no matter what she does,
somebody's going to hate on her.
Someone's going to have something to say.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about what Christians have said.
Okay.
Like, I want to know why Christians are responding in certain ways, because it feels like Taylor Swift is very triggering to Christians. So let's talk about some of that. There is this conservative Christian influencer named Allie Beth Stuckey, very big online, has written a couple of books. And she released this video, and I want to read parts of the script. Christian moms, you've got to stop allowing your daughters to idolize Taylor Swift. Her lyrics, her clothing choices, her relation choices, her behavior, the ideas and identity, persona that she puts forth in no way aligns with the biblical values that we should be trying to cultivate in our Christian daughters. Then later on, she says, I just think she is a lost person doing lost people things, and we should be praying for her, not paying for her to continue to impact thousands and thousands of young women, including young Christian women with ideas that are unholy and unhealthy and will ultimately lead them down a path of destruction. How does that hit you?
Well, I've spent as much time, I've spent less time with Miss Stuckey than I have with Miss Swift.
Okay.
And so I'm a little hesitant to speak about Miss Stuckey. Mm-hmm. But I think hearing that, I'm flashing back to when I was like 12.
Okay.
In Talladega, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And on Saturday mornings, you could drive into the square in Talladega, and there was a street preacher on the corner. And he would stand out there with his Bible. I don't know if have you ever seen a street preacher?
1,000,000%. Yes.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, he was the old school street preacher.
Probably not old school versions, but I've seen people yelling at people on the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he would be out there with his Bible, waving his Bible in the air, and, raised voice and preaching. And, there's something on the one hand that's very admirable about that.
Yep.
Because it's like, you've got guts to say what you think in a way that at one level sets aside a sort of certain kind of pridefulness.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like, it's a little cringy and preachy and moralistic, and it doesn't do much for me. And I don't know that it does much for the world.
Yes. By the world, can you define that? What do you mean?
I mean, like anybody.
Okay.
I mean, I just don't know what kind of...
Lee, you're like, look around.
It's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't, but maybe, God always works in mysterious ways. Who am I to say? But my impression is that I just don't know how that's particularly helpful.
Yes.
And so I thought of that old school preacher when I heard you read that. It's like, it strikes me in a way of like, well, okay, I admire you saying what you think, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I'm not quite so sure. I guess I would just say that I spent enough decades of my life working through Christian moralistic finger wagging that I'm almost allergic to the stuff.
That's a good way of putting it.
And it's just like, that doesn't do anything for me. And I think it also, the people that think it does do something for them, I'm tempted to wonder whether it's more of a, and now I'm wandering into areas I really probably shouldn't wander into.
Please do.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like for those who do resonate with it, I'm wondering, well, is that just a way of fueling a sort of self-righteous moralism that further alienates one group from another group? Or is it really cultivating a sort of insightful, critical awareness of what's going on in the world? And I'm not so sure that it does.
Okay, quickly, can you define for anyone who doesn't know moralism?
Yeah, so moralism is like having a certain set of moral rules that you focus on without really asking the larger questions of why are these things important, and what kind of life are we being formed to live by keeping these rules. Rules are important, right? Life is not possible without rules. But legalism and moralism are close cousins, and that is that they focus upon a rule for the sake of the rule rather than the sake of the community that we're trying to establish, or the kind of people that we're trying to be, or the character that we're trying to form.
Yes. Yeah. So I love that, and I think that that's important because with Allie Beth's message, I don't even necessarily super disagree. Like with this record too, there's some sexually explicit stuff on there that for a younger girl or something, there might need to be more of an active conversation around it. And it might not be something that they just need to take in as truth when you're that young. So it's not even necessarily that I disagree with that piece of it. I think that for me, to your point, there is a delivery issue and maybe a messaging that furthers the secular and sacred divide, is what it's called sometimes in academic circles, where it's Christian moms, do not let your daughters be influenced by this secular artist. She literally uses secular artists at one point in the video. And it's what messaging is that? If you step back and say, oh, then what you're saying is that the world is divided between us and them. And if you're a Christian, then you need to not let your child be influenced by this secular person. But ironically, and I won't go into this with her specifically, but with other people, they aren't concerned about secular influences from other places. So there's something specific about Taylor Swift that this is obviously triggering for them.
Right, yeah. And it's a very limited set of concerns. As we go on and talk later about the album, there are lots of questions and conversations to be had about a lot of the things that she says in this album, I think, that can be really interesting conversations. But it's when people start their moralistic finger wagging, they immediately go to sex.
Yeah.
But they don't hardly ever talk about things like fame.
Yep.
Or money.
Yes.
Or power.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's just, don't mess around with the sex stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And it's important not to have a rigorous sexual ethic.
Yes.
But it's why do you always just focus on that?
Yep.
There are lots of other conversations to be had. So stop picking on them just for that.
Yes.
And have more interesting conversations.
You're exactly right. Yeah, and I'm happy you called that out. Okay, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about kind of the broader views of culture and all of that. But I also want to bring to as an example with this, with how some Christians are responding to this. Ann Wilson is this Christian country singer who brought a little girl on stage, when Taylor Swift was advertising for this record. And this little girl had a sign in bright letters that said, "In a Swiftie world, I'm a Jesus-loving Ann Wilson girl." And I thought that is a fascinating data point. Because, and we're going to go into this in a second when we talk about some culture stuff, but what that is also saying is so much more than what the sign says.
Yes.
It is setting up, first of all, these two women against each other.
Right.
Fascinating. it is also like, why is it a Swiftie world? It's kind of setting up like Taylor Swift to be like the secular heretic pagan woman over here, and then Ann Wilson to be like the pure, clean Christian Jesus thing there. And then the third thing that I noticed, I'm sure you noticed more, but I'm a Jesus-loving Ann Wilson girl, those two being connected. Also fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to draw attention to that. I don't think that was malicious at all, and I get the message of it, but I think that it also says a lot more that's harmful than what we've realized.
Yeah. No, I don't feel like I can add anything to your commentary on that. Yeah, I would just say, why do you have to do that?
Why do you have to do
Yeah.
it?
How does that help us?
And like thousands of parents underneath the comments being like, this is what I want my daughter to be raised like, and this is whatever. And it's also, interestingly enough, and this will be like a little bit of a hot take, but Ann Wilson was on tour with Morgan Wallen during that time too. And he has some controversial stuff that is going on that, like, to hitch her wagon to his, that is not as simple or pure as it can seem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like she's on a worship tour. It's there's some like secular sacred divides even being broken down there that people are comfortable with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
Which is complicated.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Christ and culture. Let's talk about how Christians interact with culture.
Yeah.
You're a professor.
What do you want to say about it?
Well, I want to talk about Richard Niebuhr's work, even though I'm terrified. You guys, I'm going to look to camera for this. Richard Niebuhr.
Richard Niebuhr. The brother of Reinhold Niebuhr. Yes. Reinhold is a bit more famous brother.
Reinhold is the more famous one.
Reinhold, yes. for the academic geeks.
Yes, please.
Okay, Reinhold was a professor at Union.
Yes.
In New York City.
Mm-hmm.
He was called Reiny. He was a beloved Reiny by his students. Ooh. Yeah. He was one of the few theologians that's ever been on the cover of Time magazine, Reinhold.
Oh, I actually think I've seen that cover.
Yeah.
Both German.
Yes.
And Richard.
Well, they're both German because they're brothers.
Exactly. Magical how that happens, isn't it? Well, yes, but when you said Union, I didn't want people to think American.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like German across the board.
Yeah.
But H. Richard wrote, you guys, this
and
very
H. Richard was at Yale.
At Yale.
Yeah.
Which you are. Wait.
No,
you are at Notre Dame.
Yes.
Nice. He wrote this very famous book called Christ and Culture that, I am not lying, almost every seminarian has to read, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably maybe the best-selling theology book of the 20th century.
So influential, and I think, and I can't wait to hear your critique, has a lot of great stuff to say. But while I was writing the episode brief last week, I had this instinct inside me that said, I don't think Lee loves this framework. And I don't even know why. Maybe it's just because I was reading all of your books last month. And so I send Lee an email and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. How do you feel about Christ and culture? And Lee was like, yeah, I wrote a whole critique to that in seminary or whenever you did it. And I was like, well, I had a feeling that you were not going to be a fan. So explain to me the framework and why you don't like it.
Okay. Well, I would summarize the book this way.
This extremely famous framework.
Yeah. That he asks the question, how does Christ relate to culture?
Yes.
And he sees culture as this thing out there, this sort of monolithic thing that we can then take Christ, who's apart from culture, and figure out how Christ is going to relate to this thing out there. That's the problem with the book.
Okay, so...
And it doesn't sound problematic to you, does it?
I would like to know why it sounds problematic.
So let's ask this. So let's say, for example, it's not uncommon in some Christian subcultures to hear Christians say, Christianity must be countercultural.
Yes.
And that's a stupid, ignorant thing to say.
Oh my gosh, this is the hottest take yet. Okay, why is it a hot take?
It doesn't say anything. Because so for example, okay, you want me to be countercultural.
Yes.
So I'm going to stop speaking English.
Okay.
And I'm going to stop eating hamburgers and French fries and pizza. How about that?
Right.
Look at me. I'm countercultural.
Okay, yes.
Right. So that's not the way culture works.
Right.
Culture is the water around us.
Mm-hmm.
Culture is that in which we exist and move and live and breathe. And so the question of how does Christ relate to culture, as if culture is something out there, sets us up with this false set of presumptions. So what he does in the book is he has this typology where he says, on one end, you have those who withdraw from culture,
Right.
the Mennonites, for example.
Christ against culture is what he calls that.
And then on the other hand, you have those Christ of culture, the mainline Protestant liberals, who are all friendly with culture, according to Niebuhr. And then in the middle, you have people like Aquinas, who Christ transforming culture, right? And then a couple other subtypes. But that's the continuum. And it's like, well, wait a second. You know, why is it that the Mennonites deciding they won't wage war, why does that make them against culture? That they're against one piece of culture, namely the violence. They're not against culture.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done all sorts of amazing things for human culture.
Okay.
Protestant liberals, you know, because they, because they say we should take seriously the findings of science and social sciences and all that kind of stuff. Does that make them somehow not care about Christ? Or to submit Christ to any whim of culture? Well, no. And so, in other words, what we have to do is have a lot more specific, nuanced questions about any particular given. And so Christians, in my mind, depending upon the question, there are certain things that we're going to reject. I mean, like, for example, we have the horrific practice of human trafficking. Well, I would say, well, we ought to withdraw from that and be absolutely opposed to it. We have, on the other end, the beauty of good music and poetry and drama and the arts, and much of which is life-giving and beautiful. Well, we ought to be all into that and celebrate all of that. We ought to be for culture, right? There are other things that could be helpful, but if they're not done well, could be destructive. And with those things, we ought to seek to transform them so that they're redemptive. And so it all depends upon the specific cultural artifact we're talking about, rather than culture as such.
Okay, so for you, first of all, for anyone listening who hasn't maybe gotten like undergrad, master's, or above in religious studies, this is a very hot take, I would say. Would you agree?
It is a minority take.
It is a minority take, which we love. Okay, so I just want to name that. Second part is, would you say, and I actually really agree, because when I went back and refreshed on his work, even using the word culture now doesn't feel as relevant because people are recognizing we have cultures. So like there are different cultures. So whereas he treats it as more of like a monolithic, anything that any human does for him was culture. Right. I think now that just wouldn't fly with what we know and how we kind of like experience and talk about culture. So I agree with that too. Okay. But with your thing, if he added the addendum of like Christ against this artifact of culture, Christ transforming this artifact of culture, like, is it just that language piece for you where it's more about the specificity, or do you disagree with the whole framework of how Christians interact with pieces of culture?
Well, I think that, I mean, that would definitely change it, but then you don't have a typology, right? So a typology is trying to say there are people who, generally speaking, react to this question this way.
Right.
And it's like, that's not going to help anybody, because it's like, in practicalities, we all take everything on a case-by-case basis.
Yes.
Right? So the Mennonites or the Amish, they look like they've withdrawn from culture, but in fact what they've done is they've asked questions about, okay, do we want a telephone in our house?
Right.
And how will that change the kind of family that we are if we have a telephone in our house? And so they say, well, we're not so sure that we want to be a family that is shaped in our house by having that telephone in our house. So we'll stick it on the telephone pole outside our yard. Well, so that's a really interesting, they may be right, they may be wrong, but they're not saying we're against the world, we're against culture, we're against technology. They're just saying we don't want it in our house because we don't know that it's going to make us a better human being or better family, right? And so it's always specificity. That if I think my general task is to be against culture, or my general task is always to be for culture, then it sets me up with a sort of approach that I just don't think is productive.
Like an all or nothing purist approach.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
that isn't helpful or practical in day-to-day life.
Right. Yeah.
Because the truth is, going back to this Taylor Swift thing with like Allie Beth, for example, it's like she's against the sexual parts of Taylor Swift's record and her relationships, her lifestyle choices, as she names them here. But then, like, which would be considered Christ against culture, right? Like, if we were going to put it in Niebuhr's framework, that would be like Christ against culture. I am against this thing.
Yeah.
But then in other pieces, to your point, Allie Beth is a business owner, a podcaster. She's a woman who's teaching people about like theology and religion and all of that stuff, which is Christ of culture in a lot of ways. Because, like, well, she would never describe herself as a feminist. There are aspects in which she operates as one.
Yeah.
And so there are ways, like, everyone is acting paradoxically all the time.
Yeah.
Like, where there are different things going on at the same time.
Or so you could say, well, she's critiquing, the wood track on there. That might be problematic.
It's something.
There's plenty in there that could be problematic.
Yes.
But, I didn't hear her do any critique of the really interesting questions in the album that get raised about what does celebrity do to you?
Exactly. Yeah.
And she's clearly trading in celebrity.
Yes.
I mean, she's a huge social media influencer, right?
Yes.
And so she's trading in celebrity.
Yep.
So why not say also, well, that's an interesting question that I need to be thinking about too.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that if generally we'll say, let's take it on a case-by-case basis and ask specific conversations, have specific conversations, listen carefully to one another, and then have specific conversations, it makes it much more interesting.
I love it.
So rather than, quickly, and then we can talk about the album maybe, so rather than trying to find some place on that continuum where I think I am, I'm against culture, I'm for culture, I'm transforming culture, is just to say, take an ad hoc approach. Ad hoc, one at a time. And one of the ways I do this with my students when I talk about this kind of stuff is I say, look, think about partisan politics for a second. I said, if you're like a ideological anti-big government person, and you go read the end of the book of Genesis, and Joseph gets sent down into slavery, what Joseph does to save the people of Israel is he sets in place a big government project of big taxation that saves the people, and he is celebrated in the story. Big government right there. If you're ideologically opposed to big government, you are opposed to this story at the end of the book of Genesis.
Genesis 38, right?
And then what happens is that the mechanisms that Joseph puts in place then become the mechanism of big government that then oppresses and enslaves the people.
Yeah.
And so if you are ideologically in favor of big government, you've got a huge problem with the first part of the book of Exodus. And so it's much better, I think, to say, I'm not going to be ideologically committed to big government or small government. The question is, what kind of government and what's it doing? And those are much more interesting questions. So an ad hoc approach rather than an ideological kind of approach upon that kind of spectrum.
That is really important to name. And the visual that came to mind for me was like a tasting menu at a fancy restaurant versus a la carte. And it's like when you do a tasting menu, you can't make adjustments to it. You can't, because at those fancy restaurants, they've got their stuff set, and whatever you're ordering, you're getting the whole thing no matter what. And when it comes to like cultural conversations and theological and ethical and philosophical, a lot of the times we want to do a tasting menu because it's easier. You're literally like, yep, like I believe in this person's framework or like Niebuhr's framework or blah, 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 blah. And then you're just done. And you don't have to think more deeply about it versus like an a la carte situation where it's like, oh, this, like depending on how hungry I am. Or depending on like what my budget is. And it's like being able to adapt. But the a la carte piece where it's like you can always adapt every time you go into a restaurant. And I think like what you're trying to say and what I actually really love, although what I like about Niebuhr's framework is that it helps me identify how people are engaging culturally. Like sometimes it's helpful for me to be like, oh, okay, they see culture as something to be waged war against.
Yeah.
Or they see culture as something to coddle or pander to. And by culture, I mean, in your language, a cultural artifact. So like they see this cultural artifact as something to be rejected fully. And I think that his framework at least was an introductory, helpful tool for me. But I think that what you're saying is this a la carte piece, and I really like that idea.
Yeah.
It's more complicated and time consuming, but most good
Yeah,
things
well,
are.
I do think, though, that if we'll force ourselves to do these little mental tricks to say, oh, they're opposed to that cultural artifact, it allows you to see things you wouldn't see otherwise, right? Because you can say, oh, they're not opposed to culture as such. They're just opposed to this little particular piece. And there may be all sorts of other things in the culture that they're blind to, oblivious to, that they've bought hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
But they're just obsessed about that piece, and then making sure they're opposed to that piece.
Yes.
Without the awareness that all this other stuff is out here.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think seeing different Christians' responses to Taylor Swift has helped me see more clearly. Like, oh, some people, this brings up a lot for them.
Yeah.
That they either really want to pander to and coddle, like, be like, yes, I'm bought in all the way, or really want to be against, but just specific parts of it, which is always fascinating. Yeah, I haven't heard anyone criticize Taylor Swift for celebrity or greed or anything. Like, it's all been about the sex piece for this record. Yeah. Very worth noting. Okay, well, that being said, we're not Christ against cultural artifacts. we're wanting to dive in and talk about some Taylor Swift stuff. So you listened this morning.
Yes.
You gave me 4 songs that you potentially want to discuss. Starting with Life of a Showgirl, the song, which is the last track on the record with Sabrina Carpenter. Talk to me about what stood out to you.
Well, how would you describe the song?
The song with Sabrina?
Yeah.
To me, I love Sabrina Carpenter. I do want to say neither of us are Swifties. I probably know more about Taylor Swift than you do, but like, I'm not a diehard. So I want to come into this conversation respectfully to the Swiftie world and say we're going to miss some stuff.
And I'm going to say it's your fault that we're having this conversation.
Why is it?
And so if I inadvertently step on the Swifties' feet, it's your fault for erasing, bringing me into the room.
Lee, listen, here's the thing. I was doing research for this episode, and I posted on my stories, on my Instagram stories, a couple of questions for Swifties. Because I was really curious why this record got so much criticism compared to her previous ones. And I just gave some theories. Like, I wasn't saying that I was a perpetuator of those theories. Like, I just wanted to know, like, are these theories correct? And I have never gotten so many DMs in my life, like hundreds of DMs of just people very passionate about this woman.
Huh.
And I think that made me want to shy back and not talk about it at all. I was like, please don't get mad at me. I'm not criticizing her. I'm just curious. I thought it was really fascinating, the last song. It's obviously all of the whole record is speaking to the cost of fame and celebrity, in my opinion. But I really like the I'm immortal now. Did you catch that lyric at the end?
So, but the trajectory of the song is that she's first idolizing someone who's a star, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. And then she begins, and then she's warned about the cost of this trajectory and vocation, and then she's finally transformed into the very thing that she once admired.
Yes.
But with her eyes kind of wide open, saying, "Yeah, I paid a lot for this, and I sacrificed a lot to this, and now I'm somewhat immortal." In having this.
Immortal, but also dead inside.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Like immortal at a cost.
Immortal at a cost.
But then the boppiness of the song kind of plays with like it's still all a show, like it's show business.
Right. Well, and I think what's so interesting about the song, you know, as someone who's done some shows, you know, obviously nothing like a Taylor Swift show, but
at Wembley.
But yeah, right. But, you know, I've known what it's like to stand in front of a couple of thousand people and put on a really good show and you know, with a great applause and standing ovation at the end. And there's something that happens at the end of a show when everybody is at the height of emotional peak and everybody's happy and you're thanking the band. That is one of the most poignant moments in a show. That is like deeply moving because it's like you're all together and this was amazing and it's a wonderful moment. And if you listen to Life of a Showgirl, that track at the very song, Sabrina Carpenter is thanking Taylor Swift and thanking the band.
Yes.
And everybody's going on. And it's like the irony of that is amazing because it's like they've just sung about the immense costs of this. So there's an implicit critique of what they themselves are doing.
Yeah.
But there's nonetheless the glamour of it that is, I think, for me, is ensconced in that closing moment
Yeah.
at the end of a show.
Yeah.
And so it's just fascinating. And so it's like they don't give us any answers.
Mm-mm.
But at a minimum, what they do is that they open up in this I think it's a very vulnerable song.
It is, yeah.
And it's admirable because it's so vulnerable, because they're saying this stuff can take a lot from you and it costs a lot. But we're in it.
Yeah.
And we're having a good time with it too.
But we're in it, yes.
Yeah.
And that is how the whole song ends with them being like, that's our show. We love you so much. Good night.
Yeah.
When they say, give it up for the band and the dancers and Sabrina. I love you, Taylor. Like, I love that you pulled that into like the broader piece. Okay, so for you, why do you feel like it's so moving when you're at the height of it to then give gratitude to the band? Is it for you like a humanness piece?
Well, I mean, I remember, so we started doing live shows in like 2008. And I remember after the first couple of shows, either it hitting me finally. I was never an athlete growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and I never knew what it was like to be part of a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
But I always kind of envied from afar, wondering what it would be like to be a team that did something amazing together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that's what this is like. It's this amazing moment in which the whole is more than the sum of the parts, and together you're able to do something beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what always captures me in that moment. It's not so much the individual as is this was something beautiful that we did as a group.
I love
Which
that.
I think is what's best about the arts, right?
Agreed. Yes.
There's something really beautiful about it. But at the same time, it's inseparable from the lure and the potential idolatry of celebrity
yes.
of whatever scale, right? Of your 50 Instagram followers or your millions of Instagram followers, or having the most successful tour in the history of humankind
Yes.
with the Eras Tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all a continuum of very small to vast scale.
Yeah.
But it's the same sort of set of human temptations and problems of how do we navigate that kind of gaze or that kind of desire for attention or desire for people to listen to us.
Yeah, and still say human somewhere
Yeah,
inside,
right.
Which I don't even know if it would be possible at her level.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how
I mean,
would...
but maybe she does. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
want
I
to
don't
stand in
know.
judgment on her.
No, not at all. But I think just like the fact that like, I think about this a lot. I have some friends who are like in the Christian music world, but like big in the Christian music world. And even they, like when we're out for coffee, are always getting stopped. And when I think about like being in the like not Christian music world, like how much like bigger that level of fame can be. And it's like, I can't imagine the loneliness of not being able to say, I want to go to Whole Foods and get groceries. Like, and you can't do it because there's like this isolation piece. And obviously like people on some way like want it or whatever. And then there's like a benefit as well. But I think like for me, the pieces that keep me human in some ways are like my ability to go out and be among other humans and not be like stared at like a spectacle.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that would be hard.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sabrina, I love that she brought Sabrina. So I don't know if you know the backstory, but Sabrina went out on her Eras tour with her.
Oh, no. I didn't.
Yeah, she opened up. And so I love that they brought that back together.
Yeah.
And I really like that, the gratitude piece. I did not catch that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Fate of Ophelia, which is the first song on the record.
Yeah.
And I think it was the single.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No, that I did not know. Yeah. I mean, so I had to go back and remind myself about
She died.
about the Shakespeare stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But Ophelia, who goes mad with love because of Hamlet, he ends up accidentally killing her father.
And then she drowned.
And then so it's a nasty, bad romance story, romantic love story.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's at least trying in her song, in Taylor Swift's song, she's trying at one level to kind of redeem the story of saying, oh, we don't have to go there, but that there's the redemption of that, redemption of Ophelia's fate, right? But it seems to me that, again, it's a sort of, there's some sort of questioning about that. But in my mind, it still leaves a high level of the myth of romance as a framework is still very much operable in the song.
I was curious, yes, how you would feel about that. Because this is a little like, this is not going to be great language for it, but like damsel in distress a little bit,
Yeah.
where like she gets rescued or whatever by a man, which is so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's just so fascinating to think about because this woman kind of has it all in terms of like power and money and career, etc. And then still in this song, at least she's setting herself up to be rescued by this man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if love comes down to somebody else rescuing me, then, I mean, again, there's a place at which I also don't want to fall prey to a sort of individualistic, pull yourself up by your own kind of bootstraps, right? Because we are all living community, and there is a way in which none of us are going to live and thrive apart from the love of other human beings around us.
1,000,000%.
Right?
Yes.
But when that gets reduced, maybe might be the right word, when it gets reduced to the romantic damsel in distress needing the hero to sweep in and save her, that in my mind seems to be problematic. Yeah.
Yes. Great language. Yes. You were so proud of yourself. Problematic. Yeah. I think that would be something that I don't know, like when I think about Allie Beth's thing, like if I were raising kids listening to this, I think that would be more of a conversation I would want to have.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what messaging are you getting from this song? Like, what do you notice?
Right.
And to be able to say like, oh, interesting. Like, yeah, it's great to want to be in love. Like, it's great to want someone to spend your life with. And also that's like a broader thing. Like you need a community of people.
Yeah.
And this messaging kind of it rubs against that.
Right. And when that sets the framework for how you think about love,
yes,
then it sets you up for deep disappointment. Because like going back to the Wood track, there's that one line where it says, it's you and me forever dancing in the dark. And look, I think I can say this pretty confidently to Miss Swift and Mr. Kelsey, you freaking will not be forever dancing together in the dark. Give it 6 months and you're going to find out there are going to be moments you're really ticked off with each other.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's what love is. Is not the romantic stuff. Sure, my wife and I just went to Europe because we were celebrating 35 years of marriage. Yes, absolutely. Do that stuff. Cultivate that stuff, right?
Yes.
But that's not what it's all about.
Yes.
It is instead about this long-term commitment to love each other.
Yes.
In concrete, tangible ways, and to keep pushing through and trying to become better and better friends and better partners in life.
Yes.
Rather than thinking it's all about this romantic feeling kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think there's a place for that phase. Like, it's beautiful and fun and all of that. But yeah, like when the rubber hits the road, like you kind of just have to make the choice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like Sharon McMahon. Oh yeah, who's doing the No Small Endeavor event? Go get your tickets if you haven't yet.
Now, that's right.
But Sharon McMahon had this fascinating comment when someone was saying, like, it's hard to love people when you don't like them or blah, blah, blah. And Sharon said something to the effect of, like, love doesn't require emotion. Like, you can just, like, choose to act out of love.
Right.
Or love doesn't always require emotion. And that's what this reminds me of, is, like, the emotion part is so fun and magical. And I think that's what a lot of this is coming from. And, like, this isn't all there is.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Worth considering, Allie Beth.
Yep.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay, since we're already in trouble with her, might as well just live our best lives. Okay,
Allie Beth, that was Savannah, not Lee.
It was me. It was me. Right. Okay, Elizabeth Taylor.
Elizabeth Taylor, yes. What about that one?
The biggest bop in my mind.
Yeah.
Like sonically, and it's just so catchy with the hook.
Yeah.
So I did some research on this, and Taylor basically talked about how she sees Elizabeth Taylor as an icon, like in her mind and a career she wants to follow. And something that she said she admired about Elizabeth Taylor is the more flack that she took, because I think Elizabeth Taylor got married like a bunch of times and was kind of seen as like a seductress, Jezebel, whatever. And Taylor Swift said the more pressure she got from the outside world, the more daring choices she made. And I think that that's what Taylor Swift sees in Elizabeth Taylor that she's like pulling on from this song. I don't know if you got that or not, but.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I kind of saw in it was just this question of what does it mean to maintain some sort of authenticity when everything about you is performance?
Yeah.
And again, that's a huge question for everybody in the kind of social media influencer space, right? Is that I forget the numbers, but so people should Google this and
Yes.
do your own research before you quote me. But increasingly, college freshmen, for example, see doing things like being a social media influencer as the goal of their lives.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, why have we set that as what it means to be human now? And that's a question that we really ought to be paying a lot of attention
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, Taylor Swift's giving us the opportunity to ask that question. Because I read some sort of article in Vanity Fair where they quote her saying, quote Taylor Swift saying about the album. She said, quote, "I would say it's everything that was going on behind the curtain." And I was like, that's a really interesting premise for an album, right? Where you're at least willing, by saying that as the premise of your album, you're willing to say, okay, look, it's not all about what's happening on the stage.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of other stuff going on back here.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to give you a glimpse into some of that.
An ecosystem,
And, and it's like, that's a very honorable sort of thing to do.
I think
and
so
a
too.
vulnerable sort of thing to do.
Yeah.
And whether you like the person's answers to those questions or not, it's honorable to ask the questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which a lot of people don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in this Elizabeth Taylor song, she's saying, look, this is a hard question about how do you maintain some sort of authenticity as a human being when all of your life is performance.
Yeah. And I wonder if that is why, too, she relates to Elizabeth Taylor. Like, because Elizabeth Taylor was huge.
Yeah.
Like, so massive. I really like the line, too, the "you're only as hot as your last hit."
Yeah.
That's so good. And it shows, to your point, of like the social media world and just like a lot of times being a celebrity. It's like you're always on the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
You're only as hot as your last hit, and that pressure to keep going and to keep things getting bigger, especially with Taylor Swift coming off of the Eras tour, biggest, like, highest grossing tour ever in history. Like, how do you top that?
Yeah.
You can't.
Right.
So yeah, that pressure is huge there.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Last song we want to talk about. Ruin the Friendship. It's the most emo song on the record.
Yeah, were you surprised I put that one on the list to talk about?
I was actually surprised. I was, but then I was like, no, because this feels the most probably vulnerable or honest on the record.
Yeah.
To me.
So as I understand it, the song is about a friend she had in high school, maybe?
Mm-hmm. In high school.
That she had some sort of love for or attraction for, and they just stayed friends, and they never crossed into the kiss or
she
whatever.
lost touch. He died.
And he dies, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so then she's saying, why didn't I ruin the friendship? That is, why didn't I lean on into the relationship? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a fascinating, but I think the reason that caught me so much is that this summer I went back to Talladega for my high school reunion.
Mm.
And I don't even tell you how many years it was. It was a lot. And so one person that I wanted to reconnect with was a friend of mine that I had a big crush on for years.
Mm.
And I got back and I asked somebody about her, and they said she just died. And of very early, young onset Alzheimer's.
Mm.
And I just couldn't believe it.
Mm.
And so I happened to have my yearbook, and I found this really, really sweet note from her to me. And it was like she was inviting me in that note to be better friends.
Mm.
And I don't know what she meant by that, but it was like I was too afraid or emotionally to ever kind of see what it would be like to be closer friends with her, or even to be, to explore the romantic with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really interesting premise of it raises the question about social cowardice.
Yeah.
About the unwillingness to be risky.
Yeah.
And to see what might happen in a relationship. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that, who doesn't find that interesting?
My gosh, the vulnerability piece is so big, and how sometimes, like, you don't know what you've missed out on by not being vulnerable. And sometimes it's easier to see in hindsight, like for you looking back at the yearbook, being like, oh, that was a bid for connection.
Yeah.
Like she was bidding for connection,
Right.
but like your own whatever, like maybe it was youth or fear or resistance, like disallowed you from seeing that.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what this was, it brought up for me was like, how many risks have I been afraid to take? Because I didn't want to be vulnerable.
Right.
Not just relational, but with anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a beautiful thing to write about.
Yeah.
And I thought she did it really, really well.
Yeah, I did too. I'll also add this, though, is that, again, and again, I'll say this, that I think any good song, what it ought to set up for us is a conversation rather than the moralistic finger wagging, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the questions in the conversation that gets raised by this is that somebody could also come back and say, there's also a great deal of character and moral formation found in having the prudence to not ruin the friendship and just to say, no, I just think I'm going to honor friendship.
Wow.
And I'm not going to push on through, because there is not clear that I should ruin the friendship, right?
Yeah.
And that prudence would teach me to just be grateful for what I got.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but what I'm thinking about that is that, if you had that kind of conversation with a kid and say, let's talk about this song. Where are you being a coward?
Yeah.
Or where are you being prudent?
Yeah.
Wow, what an incredible opportunity for having morally formative conversation with your kid.
Yes. Is there anything that you're wanting to talk about with like us or with your friends or whatever that you don't know how to tackle yet?
Yeah.
Like, how can I help you have the courage for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a lot of beautiful conversations that can come from that. Oh, that's so good. Well, I love that we went late for Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Classic move from us.
Hope we won some points with the Swifties.
We won some points, Swifties. We hope we did you like that. We just did not dishonor your people, that we tried hard to take it seriously.
I would be very interested in hearing from some Swifties about what we obviously overlooked.
Yes.
Or what they think we may have well considered.
Because there's a lot of lore underneath these songs that I know that we've missed.
Yeah.
Would love to
I'm
hear.
Sure, yes.
But I would love to hear what your favorite Taylor Swift song, it doesn't even have to be on this record, although I know this is the most time you've spent, so it might be on this record.
I can't name another Taylor Swift song.
Okay, great. So just which one is the one you...
So I think I'm going to go with Ruin the Friendship. It's very catchy.
Lee.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you a list of Taylor's most vulnerable songs.
Yeah.
And just send them your way.
Okay, I'll listen to them.
Because I think that you might like some of her more like emotional, reflective ones.
Yeah.
Which early in her career, they were everywhere.
Okay.
She has this song, my favorite is called Long Live, from back in the day. Like, I was in high school when it came out. And it's basically talking to her band, being like, take this moment, and even if it doesn't go further than this, like, tell your grandkids about this. Like, tell your grandkids about this moment when everyone was going wild. Which I really love.
That's
you would
pretty
love.
Sweet, yeah.
Yeah, you would love.
Yeah.
Well, happy Swiftie Day.
Happy Swiftie Day.